Woodturning with Tim is made possible by these fine sponsors.
The American Beauty Tim uses was made by Robust Tools. All our lathes have a 7-year warranty. Our tool wrists feature a hardened rod on top. Lots of sizes to fit your lathe. Robust, because the making matters.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a woodturner, for woodturners.
Today, I'm going to illuminate your life. Actually, we're just going to make a nightlight, but it's a really cool kit, and what I loved about it is so simple to make. I got these kits at Craft Supplies, which is a wonderful place that sells lots of different kits, woods, tools, all that stuff. Hey, maybe they think it'd be a sponsor someday. That'd be nice. But they sell these neat little bitty lights, and of course I should have had one of these open. That would have helped out a lot with my fumble fingers. But they're little light kits, and they're inexpensive, I think. Don't quote me, but these are around the $1 range. And it's very simple. It's plastic with a plug, and then there's an LED in there. Well, I was looking for a gift to make during the holiday season last year, and this came up, and I thought, wow, that's a great way to make something without spending a lot of money. I can use a lot of scrap wood up, but it still is a neat gift. Now, this isn't bright enough to light your whole house, but at least it'll tell you where the wall is. In my case, that's a really important thing to have because I kind of forget where the walls are at times. But let me show you what we got over here. We decided to get a little experimental. The first ones I made, these are kind of dusty, they've been in the shop for a bit, we're out of Cocobolo. I love that wood. It is just so beautiful. But I had one issue. Once you take this and stick it on the wall, all you're going to see is a dark ring. So from across the room, it doesn't look very impressive. So my next thought was, well, what can I do? What wood would show up really well? Well, that would be zebra wood. And you can see why it's called zebra wood, because it has stripes. So it has the dark wood, light wood, dark wood. So from across the room, when you get some distance on this, you still see this neat pattern. So that's really cool, because when it's dark, of course, you don't see the wood. Then I got thinking a little bit further. Well, you don't see the wood at night, so how can we make it even prettier? So I got some acrylic, which is really fun to turn. And so I made this shape and this design, so when the light goes out, it illuminates these marks, and you really see like a target. You saw that right at the beginning. So it's a neat little science experiment. But anyway, when I got these kits from Craft Supplies, these guys are great. They supply you with instructions on how to do everything. But when I started trying to do it, it seemed a little fidgety, a little messy, you know, sesame seedy. That's an inside joke for us. But you have to make a waste block. Then you have to put a tenon on it. You drill your blank, and then you have to put double-sided tape on there to hold this on there while you turn it. Well, me being fumble fingers and not that good and smooth, I popped the first 2 blanks right off, and I got thinking, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I came up with a procedure where I'm going to drill all the holes, and then we're going to use a chuck to hold this. So the first one we're going to start working on is going to be the zebra wood blank. Now I've got my blank clamped on the drill press that I want to move. As you can see, I left this little wing on here. I just did that for illustration purposes. You can see we're drilling a hole out. This is like 2 3/4 inches. These blanks, you know, whatever size blank you have of wood works, but I wouldn't make it much smaller than 2 3/4 or 2.5 inches because it doesn't look as impressive. But this is a big old hole saw that I have on here right now. And I've lined this up in a particular way because we'll start the drill up and we'll drill as we go. I shouldn't touch that one to start, should I? So this is locked in. I'll put my hand here just as a pivot point. But see right here how I'm cutting the edge away, and you can actually see the side. This will help me when I go to the bandsaw and cut slices out, that I know how deep I've drilled the hole. Because that point underneath, you probably can't see it, there's a drill bit in there that actually goes a little bit deeper than this thing will go when I drill. So let's take our time and work our way down. Makes a lot of sawdust. But when you have a hole here, it clears it out really fast, so it's nice. You can bog down your drill press if you rush it. And we're about ready to bottom out. That's as far as we can go right there. So you can see now what we have is we have a blank drilled, and we'll probably get 3 blanks out of this one cut. My friend Bruce Holden is the one who taught me this technique because we did a show on pendants, remember? And this is the technique he told me as far as cutting out blanks for pendants. Right now I'm just using my pencil to just, that's really, there we go, a little more equally spaced. So that's about a ½ inch, ½ inch, ½ inch. And so now we can follow those lines and cut in. And this is really fun because it's a neat way of separating the wood, because if you had a round disc and wanted to cut it up, you got to deal with it wanting to roll on the bandsaw. This way you're using your block of wood as a stabilizer for the round discs. So I'll turn this on. Now let's come up here and feed it in slowly. And just try to make a straight line. And once you get to the end, that disc will pop out. There we go. That's pretty neat, huh? Now as bandsaws go, they don't make really clean cuts, so you want to clean up the face of the wood. Now we got lucky because we have the milled face right here, which is nice and flat to begin with. But here's the side with bandsaw marks, and it doesn't look horrible. But the thing is one of these sides is going to wind up being the back of the light. And the problem is when you have this mounted on the lathe, you can't really get to the back side. So if you go ahead and sand this, and this is just sanding to 80 grit, you can see it's a nice flat surface, but it's going to be on the back side, so you're never going to really see it, but it gives you a nice little touch, and you go, okay, there's some time that's been put into this and it's not been thrown together. On this side, we're obviously going to go to about 320 grit to get a nice little shine on there. And you can see one other thing. This is not a ½ inch. I'm going to take some of the wood off as I turn, but why didn't I go all the way down to here? Well, I found out the hard way. So when you make it the entire width to where this slides all the way down to there, you can't get your fingers around the edge to pull it out of the socket. So you don't want to do that. So you need a little clearance, so you got a little grab to yank it out of there. So we're going to sand this. I've got my sanding disc mounted on my lathe. This is just, whoops, a piece of MDF on a faceplate with sandpaper that's got spray adhesive on the back of it, so it sticks on there really good. So we're going to keep the speed low. And on this front piece, I'm not sure which one's going to wind up being the back, so I'm going to go ahead and sand this anyway because it's got some wax on it. So you just simply hold it up here, put a little pressure on it, and I don't have to make the blank perfectly symmetrical. In other words, it doesn't have to be exactly ½ inch all the way. It can be a little bit crooked. All I'm looking for is just a finished feel on this side. And see, that's looking good already. And it just takes a little bit of touching to get this the way we want it to look. So once I have this sanded the way I want it to look, we're going to go back to the drill press. Now I have my blank on the drill press, and I took the bit out because I want to show you something here in a second. But the way this is constructed is they tell you to drill a 1 3/16 inch hole for this to fit into, right? And then in their instructions, this is not opened up, and so you wind up cutting through it with a skew chisel, which was really tough on me. So we're going to drill a 1 3/16 inch hole here, and then we're going to drill a 1 inch hole through it so you get that little bitty lip. You can see that. We don't waste much of the light, and especially with the acrylic, it will shine through, so that doesn't matter. But I found out this is a real easy way to do this, because then later it's going to help us hold on the lathe without having to use double stick tape and a waste block and all that stuff. But anyway, what I've done is I have 2 bits. Like I said, I have a 1 3/16 and a 1 inch. So I've got my drill press set up. I've already centered all this stuff. So let me just lock the bit in here real quick. There we go. Now that's kind of high, right? Well, the reason I have it that high is so I can do what I just did, is put the bit in and take it out. Because I'm going to drill this hole now. And once I'm done drilling the hole, I want to change the bits out without moving this. So this is kind of by eye. I haven't set a depth stop, but I'm looking down there to see how much reveal I have left in the hole. So I can go a little bit more. I just want to leave about 1/8 of an inch right there. That looks good right there. So we'll go ahead and stop this. So I'm just sighting that. So do it by eye and then what you're comfortable with. If you make it too thick or leave too much wood, don't worry because we can thin it out when we're on the lathe. So here we go. We're going to put this one on now. This is the 1 inch. Get that on there good. Now, I have a waste block here because if I have really accurate measurements, I don't want to have wasting of this wood. This keeps me from breaking out the wood when I drill through. Now, I'm going to also tell you one thing, get the chuck out of the way, is this clamp is super, super important to use because you cannot hold on to that. No matter how good you think you are, you cannot hang on to this, and I want to show you something. So, let's see our finished piece. There we go. See, no tear out at all. But let me show you another piece I got laying over here somewhere. I was cutting out blanks when I was doing the Christmas ornaments, or my Christmas gifts, right? Going and going and going. And you always wind up with one like this with the wood torn. Well, stupid me, I thought I could just put this on here, hold it by hand, and drill that through. But what happened was this started spinning, and as it came around, it hit my thumb, and I got ingrain that went into my thumb. It's healed up nicely now. It's been 4 months, but it drove the wood in there in several places so deep that it took about 3 months to heal. I should have gone to the doctor when it happened, but I didn't. I thought, I can fix this. I just wrapped it up. Well, 3 weeks later when it wasn't healing, I looked at it. Oh crap, had to open it up, pull out wood. Thought it was good. Another three weeks later, open it up again. Tim the doctor, pulled out wood. Did that 3 more times. You know, I should have gone to the doctor, but also I should have clamped this down and I would have avoided the whole problem. Now I'm putting on some pin jaws. If I can get my pin jaws on, I've got this thing closed all the way. Let me open it up a bit. There we go. And pin jaws are simply elongated jaws, and they're little. So they, I think they meant they used to grab little pins in metalworking. I'm just doing this off the cuff. I might be way wrong, but that's my theory on it. That's why they call them pin jaws. But what I like about these is they're narrow, and the coolest aspect about them is that they actually are the perfect size to slide this blank onto. So you need pin jaws to finish it doing it this way. Either that or you'll be turning that waste blank and stuff. But you see I've got this goes in, and then my recess, or the 1 inch hole, it stops it. It's like a shoulder, so that can't slide through anymore, so that is perfect. We're just going to open this just a little bit and expand into the hole. There we go. We don't want to over crank it because it will crack it and pop it off. But zebra wood's really tough stuff, so I like that. So we're going to bring up our gigantic tool rest today. We don't need a big one if it's a small project. Anyway, so we're going to turn this with a bowl gouge because this is a bowl blank orientation. We have end grain coming this way, and then we have side grain up here. And it's so cool with the zebra wood, you can see the grain so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's go pick one out. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. This is my little 3/8 inch bowl gouge. I like it because it's a tiny little edge. It's V-shaped and deep grooved, so it makes nice light cuts because the deeper that groove is and the more V-shaped it is, the more of a nice little tiny cut you can take. It's not as wide of blade exposure to the wood. So we're going to turn this on, just make sure everything works. And you can see I'm a little bit out around because I didn't drill my holes perfectly in the center, but that's okay. We can waste a little bit of wood. But if you're doing these and you are really critical on your measurements, just be real careful on your drilling. So I'm going to bring the speed up here, and we're going to do pull cuts through most of this because I don't want to push too hard against this. Let's try push cut though, going back this way, because I'm pushing into the chuck. Because the one thing is with pin jaws, if you put too much pressure on it, you possibly could pop the wood off the hold. So I'm almost doing this like I would a roughing gouge. I'm using my fingers as a depth stop and just sliding across. Now we'll stop that. Don't want to stick my fingers in there while it's turning. And you can see we're already rounded out, and that's pretty cool. It doesn't bother me that this is a little bit off, not quite straight on the back. No one's really going to notice that. So our next bit is we want to start surfacing the front and want to put a curve on the edge here. So bring this here. Now I've got to bring my tool rest down a little bit because when I'm on this end, I have to bring in the tool like so. So that gets me down low enough that I can have the handle where I want it. And I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can get around the corner just a bit. So we'll turn it back on. We'll do a pull cut again and clean the face. And you can see how I'm not using much of the tool edge when I do this cut. And it moves wood quickly and efficiently. And I need to keep a handle into my hip because when I pull the thing away from my hip, I get a little wiggly and I forget. So I'm coming in here, I'm thinning down this little reveal right here, and that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to pull across and curve, like so. And that looks good. Now the one thing I should have done while I was on this side over here, turn the lathe off, I'm going to bring this around here and raise it back up now, because now I've got to have it a little higher to get the tool in the right spot, is I want to just chamfer this edge a bit so we have a rounded edge here too. So we'll do a pull cut on it. There we go. And right there at that intersection, I'm going to just pull my body across. And yep, flying my arm again, aren't I? Bring that in. Okay. Believe it or not, that is it as far as turning this thing. Now I'm just going to sand it to 320, and then we're going to put a friction finish on it. I love friction polishes because they're so easy. It's instant gratification. You get to see something right off the bat. I have my air compressor all set up because the one thing you want to do is before you try putting any finish on is blow off all the excess dust. And that way you make sure you're putting the finish where the finish should go and not on a bunch of dust. So anyway, this is Doctor's Woodshop high build friction polish. And no, they're not a sponsor. They just sent me some and I tried it out and I like it. You notice there's one color here and one color here. That's because you got to shake this up before you use it, because it's walnut oil and some other interesting stuff that's in here. And actually, if you look at it, it's kind of swirling around like you do a vinaigrette dressing. You know, you got to mix the oil and the vinegar. But these two things work together really well. The oil goes into the wood, and then I think it's shellac. Yeah. I just ate a piece of dust there. Anyway, the shellac gives you the shiny part. Excuse me. Excuse me while the host forgets to breathe. Okay, so you don't use much of this. We're just going to take like that much. It's even more than I needed. That's like 4 or 5 drops on here. We're going to turn this. Actually, I'm going to just rub it on there a little bit to get some into it. But I'm going to turn it on now, bring the speed way up, and then I'm going to push it in. And you can see I'm using my fingernail to get in around that edge. So I cover up all the wood. And it's really slippery crap too when you get it on there. So that's in there good. Now I'm just going to put some pressure on it to cause friction. And you can already see it shining up. So we're going to let that roll for just a few seconds there. And I'm going to get my paper towel over here prepared again. Let's get to a fresher spot, flip it over. You want to give it a second to cool off, and that way the shellac and stuff kind of builds up and gets a little more solid. So my next layer, let's see if I can count drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's about 6 drops. That's probably way too many for the second coat because it'll splatter off and get you good. But it's on there, so now you'll feel the heat through this paper towel, and that's why I like to use a paper towel, because I can feel how hot it's getting. And whoa, that's warm. But the other thing is if this gets caught in the lathe, it's just going to simply tear instead of a cloth, which would wrap around it and get you into a lot of trouble. Now I can keep applying finishes to this and put as many layers on here as I want. But look what 2 layers looks like already. And look at the chatoyance. Can you actually see the ripple of light as I turn this? Isn't that beautiful? That is just gorgeous. I love this finish. Now we're going to work with the acrylic, which is so fun because you can make this any size you want. I guess you could have a nightlight that big if you wanted to. But you can see I upped the ante on the sizes. So I went to almost a full 4 inches. This is probably about 3 3/4 inches on the acrylic, which is cool. And it's a neat process working with plastics. You have to approach them a little bit differently, go a little slower sometimes, but other than that, it's great to use on the lathe. This is actually a cutoff of a discarded chair mat I had made a long time ago for my office. And if you go out and buy your acrylic, this is a 1/2 inch thick acrylic, there will be paper on both sides. leave the paper on until you're ready to turn. And in this case, I don't have it on there, but that's okay. I'll pick up a few scratches, but I'm not worried about that. What you don't want to have to do is to have to go back and try to polish this surface again. It's already perfect. Don't screw it up. Use it as it is and save yourself a lot of work. So I've got my caliper set to about 2 inches here. And I tried this with my regular calipers, which are pencil, but they didn't mark very well. So I'm gonna kind of push this down in here. I made a mark, as you can see, and this is just an on-camera experiment. Yeah, I told you it's an on-camera experiment. We'll see if that digs in. I want to, I'll try this point. I remember I dulled one of these points so I wouldn't get it stuck in wood when I marked things, but we look good there. So what I want to do is actually try to scratch the surface. Yeah, I can see it. I don't know if you can, but trust me, there is a big scratch going on there. Go back into my registration mark. This scratch is what I will look at when I put this on the bandsaw to cut it out. And if I stay in that hole right there, I'll have 1 scratch instead of 16. There we go. All the extra scratches I made are on the outside. Now to help us out just visually, I'm just going to mark this because we can see the scratch. I am not good at drawing. There we go. You don't want to make the Sharpie mark go inside because then you're going to have to clean it off. I think it will clean off. I just haven't had to try it yet because I turned it away every time. There, that's a beautiful circle. Anyway, it's because of bandsaw. I'm glad I have a lathe because if I can't make a circle on my own, I need all the help I can get. So my bandsaw's set up just like it would be normally. I'm going to cut through it. I'm just going to take my time cutting through it. There's a fine line between going too fast and too slow. If you go really fast, it doesn't cut that well, but if you go really slow, it can melt together. So first thing I want to do is just do a straight cut across. And I'll curve it now. We'll follow our curve. And you see it cuts just like wood. The shavings are just a little bit different looking. So we got here. It also has a beautiful smell. I want to watch my thumb here, so I've got it to where if I push, I go that way instead of that way. And just slowly rotate it, moving my thumb out of the area, the blade area to here now. Now I'm putting my fingers up top. We'll come through this cut. Now again, I'm pushing like that in case something slips. One more corner. There we go. Now the acrylic is clamped to the drill press. Almost called you a bandsaw too. Anyway, the same process, everything, except it's really fun when you do this stuff because the shavings are just wonderful. You do want to go slow. Here comes the money shot. Whee! And don't get too enamored with it and drill all the way through the blank. See, I've barely gone in right there. There we go, a little bit deeper. Yeah, it looks like confetti or something like that. It looks like I can make a clown outfit out of this. It's ruffly. It's really neat stuff. But I need to go a little bit deeper here. I'm just trying to eye it in. I can probably go in just a tick deeper. Always one last cut, right? There we go. Okay, now I'm going to drill the other hole all the way through and we'll be ready to go to the lathe. One thing you want to do before you get off the drill press is check the fit of the light bulb into the hole, because sometimes the acrylic melts and builds up a bit of a rim on there, and I actually had to put the other bit back in and go in and clean it up. So now it fits, now we're good. So we're going to put this on the chuck, and this is acrylic, so it really is a lot less likely to split as the wood would be, so I can put a firm grip on there. That looks nice. And I want to rotate this by hand because this little bugger's a bit out of round. That looks good. Gonna bring the speed back down from when we were doing the friction polish. That's a good idea. Now you want to go slow. You really don't want to go fast when you start making these cuts. So I do have my bowl gouge again. And I'm going to come across, I'm going to do a push cut through here and just figure out where it is. You're going to hear it chatter and shatter a couple times. Because until you get into solid, and I don't want to talk while I'm doing this, this stuff tastes really bad. You're not going to get a smooth cut till you get into solid acrylic. So you just want to very carefully chip your way across. You want to wear a face mask with doing this cut, I don't blame you. But now you can start seeing some of the shavings that come off when you start getting into more of the acrylic. So once we get a solid surface on here on this cut going across, it really is fun. But I'm taking just maybe a 1/16 of an inch cut here. And you can see the shavings go everywhere. They wrap around stuff. You wind up with quite a supply of them. I keep forgetting not to talk here. There we go, now we're getting there. So now we're getting into more solid wood. I can do a pull cut too, which actually is nicer. I'm going to put my curve on here. There we go. Some of those fun shavings that you get. You put a radius on here, and you want to put probably about an 1/8 inch radius to give it a nice little shape, and you want to see this feature when the light's on, so it's got to be a certain size. Whoops! See, I went too fast and I shattered a bit. That's what you call design modification. So we're going to do a shape right here. Do some pull cuts. We're going to make more of a reveal on this edge. See what I can do here to blend that in. You're not going to sand this, so you want to leave the tool finish on here. And the thing about the tool finish is it's opaque. So you can see we have some opaque. I got a couple chips in there, so I'm going to clean this up just a little bit more. I haven't finished cutting away some of the bandsaw marks. Once this is finished, we'll start doing some decoration on this side. I've turned on a light so I can backlight this a little bit because I want to see some of the work I'm doing. Also, it's really cool. You can see I've got a lot of these really cool shavings now. And they're really great. One trick I'm going to do is right here, you're going to see the light kit right behind this edge, so I'm going to chamfer this edge a bit just to put some opaqueness to it, if that makes any sense. So I've dropped the tool rest down. I'm bringing in my bowl gouge again. Yeah, we're just going to keep pulling like that. Whoops! I got to quit taking such an aggressive cut. So now I got a little work to do here. That's why you watch me. There was a chip in there that I had when it drilled through, and that's what causes those catches. Whenever you have a chip and no solid surface, you will get that reaction from the acrylic. So you want to make sure that you're smooth, and if you're not smooth, just take your time. So anyway, I've got that there. I want to put some decoration on here like I had on the other. So I'm bringing my tool rest up to just about center height because we're going to use a point tool. This is 3 sides resulting in a point. And this is great for making decorative cuts and actually doing a little bit of bead making and things too. I haven't quite mastered that skill, but I am good enough at pushing it straight into stuff. So what I want to do here is we're going to make 3 decorative lines here. Bring the speed up a little bit, and I'm looking under my camera, so I'm going to have a little odd approach to this. But I'm going to space mat 1, 2, 3. So the first one goes in like so. Now I'm only going in, probably 1/16 of an inch at most. My next one, I want to go in slightly deeper. And it's not that I want to make the line wider, but by making the line deeper, as the light travels, now from the light, it goes through the plastic. If these were all the same depth, this first ring right here would catch the light and it wouldn't hit this one or this one. By making these successively deeper, there's light catching this one, this one, this one, and then it's going to catch the edge too. So now, looks like we're ready to put it together and light up our life. I said that. Gonna be living with this stuff for weeks. Well, it's a real simple glue job. I'll go ahead and do the wood one for you. It's Instant Bond. I'm going to be using thick. Gives me a little working time. I don't know if you can see this, but there's some little tiny ridges right here on the edge. And if you put the glue behind here, these ridges keep the glue from running forward. But if the glue gets into them, it gives it a little bit of bite into the wood. So you just don't want the glue to be out here in the face. You can actually clean it off. It's just a little difficult to do. Oh, and speaking of cleaning it off, I found out that Stickfast is also a supplier of, they make instant acrylates and stuff like that. And I found out that their debonder, which is really cool in case you get stuck to super glue, takes off Sharpie pen off the acrylic very nicely. I'm sure a lot of stuff will, but at least I know that works now. So I've got a little bead on there, and the smartest thing you can do is to grab some accelerator, pop the top, and this won't hurt the wood on the inside there, just inside a little bit on the rim. Take this, slide it in, turn it a little bit, and just hold it. And then once that dries up, you're going to have a couple really cool looking nightlights. So anyway, that is how you make a nightlight kit, and I think this is going to be great for the holidays for gifts, because you make a bunch at one time. This is a really fast process. So until the next time on wood turning, keep turning.
The American Beauty Tim uses was made by Robust Tools. All our lathes have a 7-year warranty. Our tool wrists feature a hardened rod on top. Lots of sizes to fit your lathe. Robust, because the making matters.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a woodturner for woodturners.